She pulled the trigger. The blast punched a hole clean through the cabin wall 6 inches from Cole Hunter's ear. Wood splinters bit his cheek. The echo rolled across 3,000 acres of Texas night like a cannon shot. Cole didn't flinch. He had faced loaded guns before, but he had never faced one held by a woman barely able to stand one arm, locked around a small boy pressed hard against her chest. Her eyes hollow and gone like a woman who had already lost everything once and had decided she had absolutely nothing left to lose. If this story already has your heart beating faster, you are exactly where you need to be. Subscribe to this channel right now, hit that notification bell, and follow this story all the way to the end. And drop a comment telling me what city or state you are watching from. I want to see how far this story has traveled. Now let's go back to that frozen cabin and find out what happened next. The smoke was what got his attention first. Cole Hunter's foreman had spotted it just after sundown, a thin gray thread rising from the old Canyon Ridge cabin nobody had used in going on 4 years. Cole had ridden out himself because that was the kind of man he was. He didn't send people to do things he wasn't willing to do himself. It was the coldest night Texas had seen in 2 decades, the kind of cold that got into your bones and stayed there, and whatever fool had broken into that cabin was about to get a very direct conversation about trespassing on Hunter land. He hadn't expected a gunshot. He hadn't expected a woman. He especially hadn't expected a 6-year-old boy with enormous brown eyes staring at him from behind a pile of moth-eaten horse blankets in the corner, so still and so quiet that Cole's chest did something it hadn't done in 3 years. It pulled. Hard. The woman hadn't lowered the shotgun. "Get out," she said. Her voice was low and controlled, but her hands were shaking. Cole noticed that immediately. He noticed everything. It was a habit he'd built over 40 years of surviving ranching business and men who wanted to take things from him. She was young. Maybe early 30s. Dark circles carved deep beneath her eyes. A split lip that had healed crooked. She wore a man's coat 3 sizes too big, and boots with a hole worn through the left toe, and she had positioned herself between Cole and the boy with the kind of instinct that didn't come from bravery. It came from terror that had gone on long enough to look like courage. "Ma'am," Cole said carefully, "that gun's got 1 shell left. I heard the other one when it went through my wall." "Then you better hope I don't miss." "I'd say the same thing to you." Neither of them moved. The boy in the corner made a small sound. Not a cry. Just a sound the kind a child makes when they've learned that crying doesn't help. Cole felt that sound in his sternum like a struck bell. "How long you been out here?" Cole asked. "That's none of your business. It's my property, so I'd argue it is." "Then call the law." Her chin lifted. "Go ahead. Call Sheriff Briggs and his men right on out here. I'll be waiting." Something in the way she said it, the bitterness, so thick it could have stripped paint, told Cole that calling the law was exactly what she expected him to do, and that whatever happened when the law showed up was something she had already made peace with. That told him everything he needed to know about where she'd come from and what kind of men had been chasing her. He took off his hat. It was a deliberate move. Slow. He held it in both hands in front of him, the universal signal of a man trying very hard not to look like a threat, and he took 1 step back toward the door instead of forward. "I'm not calling anybody," he said. "My name is Cole Hunter. This is my land, and I'm asking you as a courtesy to tell me what's going on. That's all." The shotgun didn't lower. "I know who you are," she said flatly. "Cole Hunter, biggest cattle operation in 3 counties. Worth more money than God. Every banker and judge in the county eats out of your hand." "I wouldn't say that." "I would. I've watched men like you my entire life." Her eyes didn't waver. "You own things. You own people. And when something crosses onto your land that you didn't invite, you remove it." "You're not a something," Cole said. "You're a woman with a child." "Then act like it matters." The words landed like a slap. Cole absorbed them. He looked at the boy again, really looked, and saw what he'd been trying not to see since he walked through that door. The boy was thin. Too thin for his age. His cheeks were sunken in a way that children's cheeks shouldn't be. He had one small hand wrapped around the woman's boot like a lifeline, and he was watching Cole the way a dog watches a man who has kicked it before, waiting to find out whether this one would too. "When did the boy last eat?" Cole asked quietly. The woman's jaw tightened. That was answer enough. Cole put his hat back on, turned around, and walked out the cabin door. He heard the woman make a sharp sound behind him. Surprise maybe, or the beginning of a curse. And then the door cracked open, and she was on the threshold with the gun still raised, watching him walk to his horse. "Where are you going?" she called out. "To get food," he said, not looking back. Silence. "Why?" she finally asked. Cole stopped. He turned around and looked at her standing in the doorway of that broken-down cabin with a gun in her hands and a starving child at her feet, and he said the most honest thing he'd said to another person in a very long time. Because nobody should have to watch their kid go hungry, and there ain't a thing on this earth that excuses it. He rode back to the main house. He told his housekeeper, Mrs. Aldridge, to pack enough food for a week: bread, dried meat, canned beans, a jar of honey, 2 apples. He didn't explain why. He never explained himself on his own land. He rode back to the Canyon Ridge cabin with the saddlebag full and his rifle left behind deliberately, and when he knocked on the door this time, she opened it. Barely. 3 inches. "I could have run," she said. "Why didn't you?" A long pause. "Because he can't run anymore." She glanced down at the boy. "His feet are—" She stopped. Cole understood. He didn't make her finish the sentence. "May I come in?" he asked. Another long pause. Then the door opened. Her name was Clare Bennett. She told him that much while she fed the boy, whose name was Henry, who ate with the focused urgency of a child who had learned not to trust that the next meal was coming. She didn't volunteer anything else, and Cole didn't push. He sat on an overturned crate near the door and waited, which was something most men in his position never bothered to do. Finally, when Henry had eaten enough that his shoulders came down from around his ears, Claire sat on the floor across from Cole and folded her hands in her lap and looked at him with eyes that were calculating and exhausted in equal measure. "You're going to want to know," she said. "So I'll tell you once, and then I'd appreciate it if you'd make whatever decision you're going to make and stop dragging it out." "All right. My husband was Daniel Bennett. We had a farm about 40 miles southeast of here between the creek and the old Callaway Road. 230 acres. His grandfather built it." She paused. "Daniel died 8 months ago." "I'm sorry," Cole said. "He didn't just die." Her voice stayed flat, controlled. The way voices get when they have to carry something too heavy to put down. "He was found at the bottom of a ravine 3 days after a man named Harvey Knox made his 3rd offer to buy our land. The sheriff called it an accident, said Daniel's horse must have spooked." She looked at Cole steadily. Daniel had been riding that horse for 11 years. The name Harvey Knox landed in Cole's chest like a cold stone dropping into still water. "Knox," he said. "You know him." It wasn't a question. Cole kept his face neutral. "I know of him." "Then you know what he does." She didn't wait for confirmation. 2 months after Daniel died, a man from Knox's office came to the farm with a loan document. Said Daniel had borrowed money against the property 6 weeks before he died. Said the note was past due. Her hands tightened in her lap. "I had never seen that document in my life. Daniel never told me about any loan. We didn't need one, the farm was clear, no debt, nothing. But the bank had it on record, signed and witnessed, and the signature. Looked enough like Daniel's that the judge said he couldn't rule it a forgery without more evidence." Claire let out a breath that was almost a laugh, but wasn't. More evidence. As if a dead man's handwriting wasn't evidence enough that something was wrong. Cole was quiet for a moment. "What happened to the farm?" "Knox took it. Legal foreclosure. I had 30 days to get out." She looked at Henry, who had fallen asleep against the blankets in the corner, one fist curled under his chin. "I tried to fight it. I went to every lawyer in the county. 2 of them worked for Knox directly. The 3rd one took my money and then told me there was nothing to be done." She paused. "I had nowhere to go. My parents are gone. Daniel's brother is in Missouri and can barely feed his own family. I had $40 a wagon and my boy." She met Cole's eyes. And then the wagon broke an axle 2 miles past your eastern fence line, and it started to snow, and I found this cabin. Cole studied her for a long moment. The firelight from the small iron stove they'd managed to get going was the only warmth in the room, and it threw shadows across her face that made her look older than she was, and younger at the same time, like someone who had been through something that aged the soul while leaving the body behind. Harvey Knox has approached me 3 times in the last year, Cole said. Claire went very still. I wants the eastern corridor of my land, the section that runs from the canyon ridge down to Miller Creek. He's been after it quietly through middlemen so nobody would know it was him. Cole's voice was even. I turned him down all 3 times. The last time his man told me I'd regret it. And did you? Not yet. He held her gaze. But I think I understand now why he wants that corridor so badly. And I think it's got a lot less to do with cattle grazing than he's been letting on. Claire stared at him. What do you mean? The railroad expansion. They're routing a new line through this part of Texas. The eastern corridor of my land connects directly to the creek crossing, which is the only viable crossing point for 30 miles. Whoever owns that land controls the access point. Cole looked at her steadily. Knox isn't buying farms because he wants to ranch. He's clearing people off the land because he's positioning for the railroad contract. Your 200 acres sat directly adjacent to my eastern boundary. The color drained from Claire's face. Daniel's farm was a piece of it. Yes. He killed my husband for a railroad contract. Cole didn't soften it. She wasn't the kind of woman who wanted softening. I believe so. The silence that followed was the heaviest kind, the kind that comes after a truth that cannot be taken back. Henry slept on oblivious, his small chest rising and falling, with the easy rhythm of a child who had finally, for this one moment, found somewhere warm enough to stop fighting. Claire pressed the back of her hand to her mouth. Just for a moment. Then she put her hand back in her lap and straightened her spine and looked at Cole Hunter with eyes that had turned from hollow to something else entirely. Something that burned. What do you want? She asked. You didn't come back here with food out of the goodness of your heart. Men with your kind of money don't do anything without a reason. Cole almost smiled. Almost. You don't think much of men with money. I think exactly as much of them as they've earned. Fair enough. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Here's what I'm offering. You and Henry stay on my property through the